listening to the Construction Big Breakfast, where we give you a hearty serving of insider tips and business strategies to help fuel your day so you can thrive in the construction industry. Now, here's your host, Brendan Morahan.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Construction Big Breakfast. I'm delighted today that joining us is Colin Murphy, a director and family member of the Murphy Geospatial Limited business. Very welcome, Colin. Look forward to finding out about your business and what you've been up to in the last few months. And of course, my colleague, many of you will know, Ben Pritchard. So good morning, Ben. Good to see you again. It's been a long time since we've seen each other in person as well. So we're still relying on these cameras, aren't we? And as always, we start with the main meal of the day. So I've had my staple grapefruit and porridge with some Invennt coffee. That's staple for me. But what about you, Colin? How do you start your day?
Yeah, good morning, guys. I suppose my regular, I was going to honour the breakfast, big breakfast with having two boiled eggs, but I didn't this morning. Yeah, my regular is porridge, coconut porridge with banana, blueberries and some honey, and it keeps me going pretty well. But yeah, for the last couple of years now, that's my kind of staple breakfast.
Yeah, very good.
Trying to be healthy.
And you, Ben?
Yeah, no, like Colin, I had every intentions of cracking some eggs, but I didn't quite get around to it. So, so it was a porridge and a cup of tea for me as well.
Very good.
It's the problem when we actually film these things in the morning, Brendan. We haven't really got the time.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. That's an innovation waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So, Colin, you and I have known each other for some time, and you know, certainly from a distance, I've been very impressed with what you have done as a business and what you are doing. And I know that in the recent past, you've gone through another evolution of your business. You've rebranded. Take us through the journey you've been on and the importance of that rebranding and really why you did it and some of the challenges you faced as you're going through that.
Yeah, certainly. The business is heading towards its 40th year. Business started by my late dad, and I suppose the core of our business has been the value we add to projects, stakeholders, asset owners, and we've always been challenging ourselves, to be honest, in terms of where we sit in the project or the asset life cycle and the importance of what we do. And we've never felt overly comfortable with just being a survey company. We've always felt we add more to the project and the data we collect. So through a series of years of in-house workshops and challenging ourselves and some external support, we've changed the mindset of the business and obviously changed the naming and rebrand and so on and moved to geospatial and for us we feel we're data custodians to our clients, to our projects, to the assets, and we follow our model now is very much to follow the projects right through the life cycle and be that golden thread of data and certainty. And everything that escalates around that and the support mechanisms.
Interesting, yeah.
Like
and have you found that culturally? Sorry, Ben.
So I like that, data custodians. I like that. That's a sort of a nice term. I've not heard that before. It's very good.
Yeah, I think data is undervalued from our point of view. Data is undervalued. As you know, Brendan and Tim would obviously know, and so on, Ben. Projects, if you take any typical project, in the past you've had survey data. Mostly it's a line item in a BOQ, and it's a cost item, and it's almost a tick box. Let's get the surveying company in to do whatever they have to do. Whereas they spend on large projects, they can spend six-figure sums, if not more, on survey. But mostly that information is discarded, or in the past you've had a big bank of drawings and they're thrown in the drawer somewhere and never to be seen before. But when you see the way buildings are moving and assets and the life cycle of an asset, now what we do is the data we collect has got value. So if we're engaged early so you take a typical development in the city, if we're engaged early and we collect the data of the existing site, we ensure that data is correct, we verify it. The design teams then engage. At least they're designing and making assumptions off verified data. So when the contractor goes to site, they know as long as it's designed to the data, it's going to fit. There isn't going to be clashes, there isn't going to be issues. Then if you verify that data and that build through the life cycle of the construction, so a frame goes up, there's clash, there's verification, there's as-built if needs be, etc. But ultimately you have an as-built model of your actual build. There's a lot of value in that when you move forward to FM and operations and management. And when you take a large estates company, Grosvenor House, Great Port, and any of these guys have large assets, Blackstones. Traditionally, they have management companies with loads of people, possibly in vans, driving around the place, going checking buildings, and they may want to repaint a building or refloor an area, send the guys out in the vans to go verify and check. Whereas where we're going with an enriched data set, all you need is a PC, one guy or girl sitting at a PC, and they access a digital data set where they can run the queries and the algorithms, and it fires out all the information because it's verified, it's correct. You don't need to necessarily go anywhere. So the speed, the cost, everything is reduced.
But tell me, one of the big issues we have, in my opinion, in this industry is the short-term nature of the way decisions are made. And as you said, there is immense long-term value in the sort of work that you do.
Yeah.
But I suspect there is a perception that there is a short-term cost in gaining that.
Yeah.
That is not deemed acceptable in some of the current budgeting and pricing for commissions. And therefore people don't really commit to that cost to gain that value. How are you addressing that dilemma, or indeed is it a dilemma you face?
It is, and it's an education probably from the commercial side of projects. As I said, survey data capture mostly is a line item in a cost, whereas we see now that it's almost the graph is changing. It's a front loading of that cost, and then it diminishes because the more data, the more you spend up front, the more data you get, the more informed decisions can be made. You can preempt issues, small issues like if you've got good subsurface information, rather than just taking a desktop study and taking all the service providers' word for it in terms of the accuracy. Do a proper investigation. Especially when you're talking about London, where there's so much subsurface utility, etc. The more you spend up front that way, it's going to mitigate and reduce all sorts of issues down the line. But it is a re-education of the process, to be honest, and a valuing of that data and what that data means overall to the project life cycle and duration. But there is more and more case studies, examples of this coming out now, where there's proof that actually engagement and good data is saving time, is saving money, etc.
And of course, the recently announced construction playbook is encouraging data sharing via the contract itself. So there's going to be more regulatory and other sticks and carrots in place to encourage that and promote that. Exactly.
That's good for the industry overall. Definitely, there is I'm generalizing, saying that an education of the industry, but there are certain sectors that I suppose have copped onto this or realized the value of this probably earlier than some, and we work in them as well. And it's amazing the stark contrast from some of the sectors we work in to like the pharma, blue chip industrial side. Those industries know exactly the importance of data and the value of data, whereas your house builders, your contractor side are slower to adopt. Yes, they're talking about less value probably in terms of data, but the workflows that we have developed for our pharma and tech, we're utilizing them and trying to adopt them into our construction around tall buildings and residential, etc.
It's sort of inherent in the cultures of those industry, though, isn't it, to look for data and look for insights and knowledgeable and actionable insights from that data. It's much more required in their day job than some of the more traditional parts of our construction industry require.
Yeah, and time is money, and the money element of chip manufacturing is substantial. So the more data they have, the quicker they have it. Obviously, it has to be verified and correct. If not, the knock-on effect is enormous. So they place huge value on it.
Yeah, it's all about like you say, the first chips through the machines in the factory. Whereas construction, you were only making progress if there's a shovel in the ground.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like I keep, like, I'm a Lego nut. I love Technics Lego. And as a kid, I've always struggled in terms of the belief around why can't buildings be built in such a simple format that you get a Lego box with a set of instructions. It's manufactured in a factory. It fits. And why can't we develop and just, like, we have our offsite manufacturing, the accuracies that offsite is building to are, like, it's well achievable. It all goes downhill when we put it on the back of a lorry and start heading towards the site, because shortcuts have been taken on site in terms of either verifying setting out, verifying frame, steel installation, etc. And your offsite pod, etc., comes along and it's kind of shimmied into place, or there's very small steps that have to be taken to ensure that process actually runs smoother and more efficiently, and that's all that needs to be done. And the changes in efficiencies and cost and timing will just accelerate.
I mean, there's a wide body of thought now that construction is going to move very much to the more an assembly process and integration of systems. And obviously, were that to be achieved, the data is actually built into the asset from the outset.
Yeah.
Which arguably puts you out of work, Colin.
No, it's all data sets, so it still has to be verified. It still has to leave the factory, and it still has to be positioned on site. It actually probably makes our life easier. So we will take that data enriched pod, etc., and that's built into our ultimate data set. Then we can take that metadata, etc., and build it in. So it's no, like, we like where it's going. Like, we have a software side of the business where for years we've been developing the portal and access point of that, where we can host and make I suppose data more accessible to our clients, and the verification process around that. And that's where we want clients, we want to host the data but verify it and be that independent source of truth, I suppose, for projects, for asset owners. A lot of people we're engaging in now, from semi-state to government, etc., are starting to engage with us to create what we're referring to as a geospatial management plan. So it's basically an engagement of specifications, how people engage from a data point of view in their estate, their project, etc. So it takes the best of industry, specifications, methodologies, etc., and it puts them into a management plan. And it's almost like when you go to site, from a safety point of view, you have to be inducted. So what we're doing now and some projects, and it's starting to take traction, is you come to site, you get inducted from a data point of view. So how you think about a large project, you've got M&E contractors, you've got frame, you've got civils, etc. So basically there'll be induction on, this is the site control. These are where the station control points are. This is what you use, etc., etc. This is the naming structure. This is the formatting. This is the accuracies that are required. This is the methodology that needs to be used, etc. This is where you save. How regular you're doing updates, etc., etc. So that sort of stuff is where we're on projects now where we have that geospatial management role, where we're managing it on behalf of the client to ensure that ultimately they have a coherent verified data set. That's a value to them moving forward. So then when they roll on 5, 10, 15 years, when they want to do a refit or a extension to something, they have that data sitting there in the cloud. They don't need to go spending money. Oh, let's go resurvey that building to make sure nothing has changed. Unless they've done something in the interim, nothing has changed. The data is still verified and up to date.
And have you seen that people generally in the industry? I beg your pardon, go on, Ben, Russia, you go.
Sorry, that works well where you have the client who is the sort of owner, operator, builder. So, you know, they design, build and ultimately operate, but that isn't always the model for the industry. Plenty, you know, they build it and their value is selling it. You know, part of the problem with what we want to do in terms of life cycle within the industry is that not everyone's engaged and has value in the life cycle. How do you overcome that hurdle with that section of the industry?
Yeah, a lot of, I suppose that is more relevant probably with a lot of the tier 1, tier 2 contractors where they're in on a possible fixed price contract. They just want to deliver a project as efficiently as possible. So we have been engaging with a lot of tier 1s where we're actually signing preferred status with them. So what we effectively are with them are extensions of their own in-house capability. So we're providing support and resource if required, but ultimately what we're doing is we're working with them to try and improve workflows, standardization, to ultimately get them to where they possibly need to be over a period of time, get an understanding. So 1 or 2 contractors we're working with, we're assigned to basically doing quarterly tech updates with them on the industry. So we work with they have an in-house survey resource. And the first thing we said is, we don't want you to get rid of your in-house resource. We want to work with them and we'll support them and we'll be the extension. But we still do a lot of work with the contractor, and we support, and we actually provide training then for all their junior staff coming in, etc. So we're doing leveling courses, etc. So we're kind of that geospatial partner for them. Which is what we want, the extension of them. We're working with them then on bids, etc., where we're looking at methodology and so on and so forth, and the relationship builds on the back of that, and that's what we want. We can't put our arms around everything, but what we're trying to do is raise the game in terms of geospatial awareness and value overall, and the more we engage with contractor stakeholders, the higher the value and the reliance and importance of what good data is going to be, and it'll save a lot of time and hassle and injuries, etc., due to strikes on sites and so on.
Well, that's clearly really valuable, really important, Colin. But obviously, addressing it at tier 1, tier 2 stage is quite a long way down the process. Are you seeing any evidence that the client side is paying more attention to this to ensure that the briefs they are passing on to the supply side are more intelligent and more capable of being dealt with in an effective and efficient way?
If you move away from, I suppose, as you said, Ben, asset owners who are engaging, they're definitely starting to engage more, but it's slow adoption when it comes to design teams and consultant teams. A lot of them are still just looking at their piece of work and delivering their piece of work as efficiently as possible, whereas our belief would be we need to be as engaged as early as an architect, an engineer, etc., and everyone needs to sit around pretty much in a round table effect, right, and discuss, well, what's the project at hand, what's the task, what are we going to do, and everyone have feed into that, and understanding as to what we want to achieve. And good, like surely an architect or an engineer would be far happier designing with a data set that they know is correct and verified. It's going to make their life a lot easier. The client should be as well, because it's going to save them time and money and reworks, etc. So that's what we're trying to do, is get to that top table, be part of that top team. But it's a constant education, constant struggle. I'm at this game 26 years plus, and it's a re-education. It's a mindset change, and it's constantly working at the industry and the people we work at to try and help the awareness of it. Yeah.
And has that mindset change been required internally as well? I mean, there's going from calling yourself a surveyor to a data custodian must take a bit of a change internally as well, culturally.
Definitely, yeah. Like last year, we probably put ourselves through the ringer, to be honest, because we'd COVID, we had a rebrand, and we actually ran a full in-house internal workshop that's took up probably 40–50% of all senior management's time. So from the bottom up, we ran a process internally to basically we've extracted out a 5-year plan as an organization. And it was everybody within the company had a buy-in, and they all have a good understanding as to where we're going in the future and a re-education. And we're running lots of workshops and learning sessions, etc. But yeah, it is a re-education and mindset. We do a lot of work around key account and understanding it from the other side of the table. What's the value of data? And think about it from the client point of view, rather than saying, oh, I use this nice new shiny piece of kit and it does this, that. They don't really care what's it going to do for me as a client. And it's trying to get that mindset change. Ever how frustrating it is from a purist surveyor that just wants to talk about the nice piece of instrument.
And then taking it really upstream again, obviously with the events over the last 12 months, there's been a lot of talk about repurposing buildings, and even one step higher about geospatial planning of cities and how cities will be used in the future. Yeah. What is your thought about the role of Murphy Geospatial and people like you in facilitating that debate to really be at the core of what the future of society looks like?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting space, and I suppose if you had a blank sheet and a nice blank checkbook, you would say, yeah, cities need to have this verified model from subsurface to the air and everything accurately defined, because then, yeah, it's a lot easier to plan utility, plan autonomous vehicles. Like we've been involved in a lot of autonomous vehicle testing, etc., and where we've created 3D models of certain areas of London so they can accurately, obviously, model the journeys, etc. Because a lot of the existing mapping might be good to plus or minus 10, 20 centimeters. 30 centimeters. That's not accurate enough when you're talking about the positional accuracy that some of these autonomous vehicles can drive to. You could be standing on a curb, and all of a sudden a vehicle could run straight over your toes because the accuracy is different than the mapping. So, yeah, it's subsurface, I think, is where there's a big issue. The accuracies of what, like London. You go into the city of London. Just if you took a giant knife and took a cheese block out of the subsurface in London, you could. Yeah. I'd say people will be astonished when they see the amount of utility. And like there's service tunnels for power, for post office. There's, you name it, stuff that people don't know about. And
the secret pedestrian tunnels as well. Yeah,
exactly. And to try and actually.
It's not just that. I remember going on a site visit with a demolition contractor, and they thought the tube lines were 500 meters below basement. Turned out I think it was 15, and they just checked because they thought it was a bit noisier than it should be, but that could have caused chaos.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Like we do a lot in the monitoring space of structures, and it's amazing when you actually go to site and you do verification. So we'll do a line and level and a condition survey of the tube lines, possibly before construction would start. But in a lot of cases, we would do verification, and it's not exactly where the design might have thought it would be, and it causes all sorts of issues. So I think it's a big ask, and it'd be a huge spend, and would take a lot of time and a lot of buy-in from various stakeholders. But a verified digital model of cities would make our lives a lot easier. And then management, like if they're data enriched assets, management of our power, how we turn on and turn off utilities when they're not needed, utilization, etc. All that comes back to good data. And and it would pay for itself 10 times over a life cycle of a building. But the adoption rate will be slow because the initial spend is going to be significant. But then, like even you take it back to environment issues with flooding, like the amount of flooding issues that there seem to be just escalating year on year. That's down to just bad data and bad interpolation of data. So the data might be there, but someone's going designing on a floodplain and they don't necessarily either have to, or they engage or they don't engage with existing data. And it's as simple as, if there's good data there, you can verify, you can understand, well, what floor level do I need to be at to make sure that we don't flood this development. And in a lot of instances, and that's in Ireland, it's in the UK, it seems to be everywhere, that a misunderstanding as to what they need to do. It's not that difficult, but yeah, I think more and more knowledge probably and learnings around what we can do with a good data set, I think will make lives a lot easier for a lot of us.
Mm. Well, look, we could obviously talk for hours on this, and the purpose of the podcast is to be part of that education and learning process. So we'll start to bring this to an end. But you mentioned there, like us, you've got business in Ireland, as have we. What would you say are the major differences, both culturally and also from a data mindset? Do you see much difference between the two territories?
Obviously, market size, there's a huge difference. I came over here 15, 16 years ago with a bag on my back and thought I was going to conquer the UK, but I didn't realize how big the market was. But I think certain engagement in Ireland is a lot more personal. It's kind of who you know, what you know, and you can have a chat. But the adoption of a lot of the clients we have seems to be happening quicker in Ireland. It was slower to take place, but the last 24 months in terms of digital models and digital twins and BIM in Ireland, the last 24 months has probably accelerated at the rate of the previous 10 years in the UK. So it's adopting, but maybe that's down to the market size, but they're definitely moving at a good pace. Obviously, there isn't the same scale of opportunities. We're on HS2 in the UK, and it's an unbelievable project, probably larger than any project in Europe at the moment. But when we compare even development projects we're doing in London to the stuff in Ireland, even when you're talking about the height of the buildings and so on, it's different understanding, different models. So some of our business units, like we have a tall buildings division in the UK because of the 60, 70 floor buildings we're involved in. I think that the highest through planning at the moment in Dublin, I think they're trying to get 30 floors through planning. So it's a different mindset, different mentality, but definitely the adoption to digital has been very quick, and the take up in Ireland is accelerating. And if they keep going at the rate they're going, I think they're going to set standards for a lot of Europe, if not other parts of the world, definitely. And there's a lot of learnings. Some of our internal 3 or 4 years ago, some of what we're doing in the UK, Ireland might have been 2 or 3 years behind the curve. Now, they'll probably kill me for saying this, but Ireland is probably ahead of the curve, and they've caught up that quickly, and they're accelerating at a great rate. But we try, so a lot of what we've done the last year is we're moving to a group strategy and a group mentality. So it's a lot more knowledge sharing across both companies. Whereas in the past it was somewhat siloed because of the projects we're working on, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's amazing the acceleration we've got within the business by getting heads of departments from both sides to start knowledge sharing and talking to each other about what we're doing and so on and so forth. And it's definitely gonna be good overall for us.
Let's hope that continues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben, any final thoughts from you or?
One last question. So it's interesting what you're saying about sort of the similarities and differences in adoption, UK and Ireland. What about so trying to break the silos of data and sharing that data? Are you seeing Is it different in Ireland? Are people more willing to share with the accelerated adoption that you're seeing there, or is there still that siloed, it's my data, my insights mentality?
From our point of view, I think there's a better, there's a good adoption. There still is some silos, definitely internally there definitely is, and we're trying to break that down because there's a lot of positives towards cross collaboration within what we're doing in the business. Client side, some of the clients, I'm trying to think. They're definitely the engagement level overall, probably with our clients in Ireland, they have a better understanding. But some of our key clients in the UK really value what we're doing, and that has accelerated in the last 12 months even. I think COVID has really underpinned the importance of good data, and we're all working remotely. So if you don't have a good data set and you can't go to site, what are you doing? Or if you can't sit around in a meeting. So if you've got something that's verified, you can work remotely, you can kick on with a project, and we can discuss it with proper vengeance. We've just been engaged with a client to start looking at creating digital twins of a lot of their assets. They're an international client, and the importance of that is that they said if we could save 1% to 2% of their transport costs globally, it would be worthwhile. So they're creating digital twins of an asset where their design teams can collaborate on a global scale by just dialing into a Teams meeting. They can run clash detections, they can have discussions, etc., etc. They can talk about retrofitting this part of the plant, etc., etc. And at least if they've got good data, they can take measurements there on the Zoom call or the Teams call. They can make decisions. They can move a project forward without having to jump on a flight and fly wherever, and the cost element and the time element of that. So I can see that definitely moving forward with vengeance. People digitizing their assets.
Well, look, Colin, as I say, we could talk for hours. I knew I'd find it difficult to draw the passion out of you of what you do, but it comes across in spades. I mean, seriously, it's a credit to you and Luke and the rest of the team and what you're doing. It's seriously impressive stuff. We wish you every success. If people wanted to make contact with you, how could they find out more about you and make contact with you? We're more than happy to share the details on this podcast if you want to say.
Yeah, definitely, no problem at all. Look, it's a passion. It's a passion probably that's skin deep with us, and it's something that we'll consistently try and keep pushing the journey. And we have a long way to go. We believe we've a lot more to give, and engagement with the various faculties and colleges and so on. I think it's important to work with the next generation and so on as well. So we do a lot of work on that. But yeah, look, more than happy for people. They can email me direct if they want, or website murphygs.com. But yeah, more than happy. I'd love to speak to people. A lot of people are tired of me just ranting on about what we do, but I'm passionate about what we do.
You keep ranting, Colin. It's important. There's a lot of value you bring in, and a lot more that you can bring. So keep it up, and we're happy to continue supporting us. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us this morning. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Ben, and thank you everyone for watching and listening. If you like it, please do link us. Please share us. Please tell others. If you're not too keen on it, please let us know so that we can improve it. And if you've got ideas of how you could come on and make it even better, we'd be delighted to hear from you. At that, I'll leave it and wish you all a very safe and happy day, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
For the highest R&D tax credit you can claim. We help construction businesses get back millions in tax credits every year. Contact us today for a free review. Thanks for joining us this week on the Construction Big Breakfast. Make sure to visit our website, www.inventt.com, where you can subscribe to the Construction Big Breakfast on all platforms so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a positive rating. Or if you'd simply share it with a friend, that would help us out too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.